Welcome everyone. We are so excited to have you here today for the Great Data State Series, Oklahoma. We're very excited to take a virtual trip to the Sooner State to talk with some folks about data interoperability and data modernization in their K-12 schools. We're going to jump right in, get started. So as we are going through this introduction, please introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us your name, your organization, and where you're joining us from. And we are going to get started. We have an incredible lineup of people here today. Of course, Project Unicorn is hosting this webinar and this webinar series, but we couldn't do this without our partners over at CETA, who have been with us on the Great Data State series since the beginning. So of course, have to thank them for all of their support with this webinar series. And also have to thank our friends over at A4L, the Access for Learning community, who has been the point person in connecting everyone and bringing us all together today. I also want to thank Jill Abbott at the Abbott Advisor Group for being here to present, and our friends at the Oklahoma Department of Education for presenting their information today. Our agenda, we're going to continue with this welcome and introduction. So as I continue, please continue to introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us your name, organization, and where you're joining us from. I'll tell you a little bit more about Project Unicorn, and then I'm going to pass things over to Jill for a discussion about the history of data modernization efforts. Then we'll talk about current data modernization status and plans. We will wrap things up with some advice for other states, and we'll have a section dedicated to Q&A. As we are going through the session today, please put your questions in the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You'll notice that there should be a little button that says Q&A. You can put your questions in there and we will address them at the end. And then finally, we'll wrap up with a little thank you and some next steps. So first, I want to tell you a little bit about some offerings from Project Unicorn. First, please check out the State Commitment to Principles. This is a document that Project Unicorn put together with our friends at CCSSO and CETA. And I'm going to put the link to that in the chat right now. And basically, it is a list of some best practices that districts, schools, states, teachers, and families can all use to advance data interoperability. So check out that resource. It's free and incredibly helpful to use. Also, encourage your districts and ESAs to sign the Project Unicorn School Network Pledge. Pledge signatories basically dedicate themselves to going on a data interoperability journey. They receive free technical free technical assistance, resources, and other events like these to help them on their journey. It's free to sign, and we encourage everybody to do so. So please check that out as well. Finally, if you like events like these and other resources from Project Unicorn, sign up for the Project Unicorn newsletter. You can find it by going to projectunicorn.org and scrolling to the bottom of the screen. There's a little box where you can put in your email address and get news about all future events and resources from Project Unicorn. I'm very excited to introduce our speakers today. We have Eric Friend, CTO of Oklahoma Management and Enterprise Services, Serena Reinhardt, the Executive Director of Data Governance at Oklahoma State Department of Education, and Jill Abbott, the CEO of Abbott Advisor Group. I'm so excited for us to get started, and without further ado, I'm going to pass things over to Jill.
Great. Thanks, Jonathan. It's very exciting to see a lot of familiar names in the chat, as well as some new ones, and learning a little bit more about all of you. We're very excited to talk a little bit today about some of the work that Oklahoma has been doing in their data modernization efforts, as well as where we are headed. And I say we, but it's really the Oklahoma Department of Education. I've been working with them for about 18 months now. So I always like to start this as a conversation in terms of when we talk about data modernization. I think it's a term that's thrown around, but yet we don't always have kind of a center for what does that mean for the specific conversations. So I'd be interested if you all would fill in the chat, what do you think data modernization is? I know there's some people on here who are not usually quiet. So I'm hoping they jump in early on in terms of, what are some of those components? What are those characteristics when you hear someone say, oh, data modernization? What does that mean? Let's see. Use of a common data dictionary and possibly a data model. I think that's great, Michael. And that's definitely one of the components that we think about. The use of digitized data to support analysis and student outcomes. Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts in terms of what data modernization might encompass? Let's see, moving from custom to standard and taking advantage of modern technology solutions, knowing where data is from and where it's going. Oh, that's so important, Chris. Bringing systems up to the current technology. Thanks, Chloe. No stale data. A cloud-based data infrastructure that allows for better and more timely access. So the definition that we have been using is CETA's definition. So it's great to see Missy on here. And really we, as the Department of Education with Oklahoma, have been focusing on is, making certain that we're focused on that data and prioritizing data management. That's so important to make certain that that's at one of the forefronts. So with this data modernization, there's lots of modernization in terms of initiatives. We have really been approaching it from a data side. Making certain that we're keeping pace with the rapidly changing business requirements. As you all working with states, being a state, being a vendor that's supporting the states, those business requirements are always changing, and especially from a legislative side of things when we talk about privacy and security. That's right, Missy. We have focused a lot on privacy and security, and we'll talk a little bit about that more as we kind of go through what Oklahoma has been doing. And then really the other angle that we've been looking at is center on simplifying that infrastructure, right? Because sometimes it can get super complex, and gaining a more efficient way to view and manage data by creating that cloud operational experience, which I think Julia is one that mentioned the cloud side of things. And that's exactly the direction that Oklahoma is heading in. So wanted to talk a little bit about the history in terms of where Oklahoma has been. They were one of the first recipients of the SLDS grant. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric to talk a little bit about what some of the challenges and the focus were for that very first grant that they received about 10 years ago.
Thanks, Jill. Hi, I'm Eric Friend, the Chief Technology Officer for SDE or OSDE. So yeah, we started out in 2012 with that first SLDS grant, and we were in the boat of, there was a lot of reporting that was very manual in nature. We started off with a very manual reporting method, and we wanted to reduce that reporting burden for districts. We wanted to be able to give them more analytical tools to understand the data they were reporting, more tools and portals and ways to see the data in different ways we didn't currently have, and we didn't have year over year data in many areas. We had it in some, but we wanted to expand that library of longitudinal records. So the focus, if you'll hit the next slide, the focus of our first SLDS grant was our data governance program was our top focus, and we started up a data governance program, and that governance program was tasked with creating our metadata dictionary, providing standards for SLDS data model and exchanges. We started to focus on a data warehouse to contain data about Oklahoma students from pre-K through 12. We built a web portal to provide secure access to standard and drill down analytical reports. We did provide some analytic reports. We really wanted to focus in that area. We did provide some analytic reports as we developed, and we definitely wanted a professional development plan for our internal staff that was created throughout the program. We have several different professional development artifacts that we still use today from that time even. And then evaluation process, we wanted to make sure that we grew from where we started to where we finished, like we do in everything. So we obviously made great strides, but since then, we'll get into what has happened since then in a few minutes. And I'm going to pass it back over to Jill.
Great. Thanks, Eric. And so we know what happens. 10 years is a long time. And especially when you're talking about technology and data and regulations and policies and requirements and standards and all of those types of things. And so, over those 10 years, some new challenges arose in terms of, where do we need to focus and move forward. So some of those new challenges, Eric, you want to talk about some of those?
Sorry, I forgot I had that other slide. My apologies. So challenges today. So we have some technology challenges. We have moved off of VMs on-prem VMs, and we've moved into the Azure cloud. And we do have some assets in the Google cloud as well. So we have started moving as technology has moved. We do have some old outdated infrastructure still today, and the data model is now out of compliance, not compliance, but out of support at this point. So we're looking at updating our infrastructure, of course, but also looking at moving to a different data model. And actually, we're looking to moving to a couple of different things there. We have challenges with data collection and reporting. We don't have one sole source of data in some cases. We have ad hoc efforts to correct and identify issues. We're doing that manually, and it takes a ton of people to do that work. And then we have student identifier issues. It's very difficult when we're not able to collect a standard type of government ID number or anything like that to do matches. We have a very good piece of software to do that, but it's not 100% every single time. So we do struggle with cleanup of that and making sure that those students align. So we struggle with that there, and we have a need for stronger collaboration between our vendors, between the agency and the student information system vendors and other vendors, and trying to provide the best opportunities for the students in Oklahoma and our districts. And we haven't done a lot of systemic planning and overall road mapping since then. So as technology grew and advanced, we kind of stayed stagnant with our the way we did things. We didn't invest a ton of money into our systems because we thought it was pretty state of the art, and it was at that time. But technology gets outdated very quickly if you don't continually update it. And overall, we still struggle in the governance area, but we do have a better understanding at this point after going through these processes of what that's going to take and the amount of effort that's going to be there. But we do still have those challenges as well.
Great, thanks, Eric. And can you talk just real briefly? So with your current infrastructure and data model, can you talk about what that is? AFRL has been a great partner, formerly SIF Association, in terms of getting you guys started. And so can you talk a little bit about where you are with that piece and why there's a need to make changes from where you are existing, knowing that you're still going to be using SIF moving forward?
Right. And so with our outdated infrastructure, or with our outdated data model, we're currently using the SIF 2.0 R1 specification. And everything is in that particular, we use that specification throughout our data bases, through everything. That's what we just use as a daily schema. And so with that schema being, or that specification not being supported anymore by A4L, we are moving and working with our vendors to move to CIF Unity and take advantage of the RESTful API protocols that are available with that particular data model. So we are excited to do that. We've already had several different student information system vendors reach out and say, hey, can we start testing early? So we're excited. So I think they are too, and I hope that this move is incredibly effective. So look forward to it.
Great, thanks, Eric. And then Serena, so Eric did a nice job of outlining some of the challenges based on those after the 10 years. Why don't you talk a little bit about why we're focused on this work?
Yeah, hey, thanks everyone. Yeah, so I think in kind of starting to kind of re-engage this work and working with Jill's group, which has been really fantastic, we spent a lot of time really just brainstorming, kind of like what Eric talked about, like what are our biggest challenges? How can we improve upon what we have? And what are things that, new things that we could implement that would make it easier for our districts, for our agency? And to kind of summarize, kind of the thing we wanted to guide our work is we came up with this kind of elevator pitch to kind of summarize it of what we wanted this work to really be. And so we wanted this to be, for education stakeholders who want timely, useful, and high quality educational data. And then this new data hub that we will be kind of creating, we want this to really be a one-stop shop for collecting and reporting all of our education data that supports and improves student outcomes using insightful information. We want this new system to be kind of unlike our current systems, which tend to be inconsistent or we have duplicative processes. And we want this new solution to empower informed decision-making by facilitating the collection, maintenance, and access to data in responsible, efficient, and user-friendly manner. And yeah, to kind of build on kind of the initial kind of statement of what we want this work to be, is we kind of dug a little deeper and came up with these kind of like 5 business drivers that we really want to guide a lot of this work. So the first one, we're really concerned about data quality. We, one, want to be able to assess what is the quality of the data we have. And then 2, feel confident that we do have high quality data, feel confident that we can use it for decision making, and feel confident when we give it to other people within our agency or other people we need to share data with. Another thing that we really want to focus on is reporting efficiency. So the reporting that we are required to do at federal, state level takes a lot of effort and time from our agency staff, but also districts. So we want to get our reporting done in a timely fashion. We want to reduce that burden on districts, make sure we don't have any duplicate data collections, just kind of really streamline that process. A third thing that we really want to focus on is accessibility, transparency, and literacy. So this kind of encompasses kind of a lot of things, but we want to, increase access to our data, allow people to have kind of self-service data, increase transparency of our processes and policies, increasing documentation of these things, and just overall increasing access to our data. Fourth, and this is kind of what we've been talking about, we want to modernize our processes and technology. We want to use improved technology to improve our overall processes, improve the process for our staff and for districts. And then kind of finally, our 5th business driver is privacy and security. We really want to take this concept of, not something that we think about as an afterthought, but really something we're really intentional about thinking about early and often in decision making.
Great, thanks, Serena. And I think sometimes it's hard to take a step back. So, Serena, Eric, and the entire teams at the Department of Education. And then it's also been very collaborative with OMES, which is, and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but in simplified terms, it's the state agency that provides IT services for the state. They've really developed a strong collaboration, and in 6 very short months, they have done a lot around leadership, governance, privacy, security, and architecture. And when you're in the throes of the work, as I know you all are, it's sometimes you have to take a breath and take a step back and say, okay, we really are making strides in terms of where we're headed, and especially with limited resources, which is common within state government. Making that progress is sometimes hard to see. So from that leadership perspective and the things that have been focused on, it's a thought leadership on a variety of different topics. So making certain that the capacity is being built within OSDE as well as OMES in terms of understanding what the specific business needs of education are, which is very different from another government agency like insurance or, the, DHS, very different in terms of some of those aspects and those things that they need to think about. So part of the process that we've been doing is helping Oklahoma think through those things, but then also internally within the agency, providing that leadership component and what they're doing to change some of the culture within the organization, because that is often a huge focus whenever you undertake a large initiative like a data modernization project. And so, Serena, I'm going to put you on the spot for a minute, because Serena's done an amazing job in terms of changing the culture and starting to plant those seeds, so to speak, so that this work can become a more sustainable process. So you want to talk about some of the pieces that you've intentionally done, Serena, to address that culture side of things?
Yeah, sure. I think in kind of kicking off this project, I think we had some hesitancy from some of our staff just because, past efforts may not have come to, full fruition, or just, of what this means for their jobs, what this means for the agency. So I think kind of early on, I think, Eric and I and other people had a lot of one-on-one conversations with people in our agency to just kind of really lay out what we're doing, and how this will really is meant to improve the agency and allow people to spend less time doing manual data cleanup and do the fun stuff with data that we want to be able to do. But we've also we had some in-person workshops with Jill's team, which I think helped really kind of in people's minds help kind of understand this work better. We have open staff meetings at our agency where we've talked about some of this work. So just kind of trying to slowly get people to understand what this work is doing and how, this is really meant to help them, not really, burden them or hurt them in any ways, but really help support them.
And I can tell you're a data person, Serena, because you want to do the fun stuff with the data, which I think everybody does want to get to, right? So where the Department of Education is right now is in the process of finalizing their 3-year strategic plan and budget from a leadership perspective, which is really going to drive the work over the next several years, and how they prioritize about those components. And then we'll talk about architecture in a minute, but there will be an implementation RFP that is coming out shortly to focus on the design of the architecture. And then from a what's next perspective is really selecting that vendor, that provider who will be doing the development of the architecture, which is going to be a large component of the work over the next several years, as well as then the implementation of the strategic plan. So there is going to be, as all of you know, there's a lot more work than just the technology that goes into this. So as we've said throughout this project, it's not a technology project, but there is a large component that technology drives some of those aspects. So I'm going to talk next a little bit about governance. This is kind of one of my favorite things to talk about, in that often when we talk about governance with data modernization, we focus on that lower left-hand corner of data governance, which is super important. You need to make certain policies are in place. There's accountability, there's stewardship standards, all of those components But we've really approached it from a look of there's the three aspects of it in this Venn diagram. So you also have privacy and security governance, and you also have IT governance. Those are super important when you're looking at things from a holistic perspective in order to make certain that you're addressing all of those things appropriately. So throughout this time that we've been working together, there has been IT governance. It's been focused on the architecture review board. So making certain that the decisions in the design of the architecture have been sound and input and those types of things. That will be morphing over the next several years. So it is more of a governance model. And then the security and privacy governance is super important as well. And so that's been a work group that has really been driving a lot of the work and making certain that we've looked at risk and what policies need to happen and collection and all of those components, because it is such a super important part. And as we know, there's been some districts made some headlines last week, or actually it's been a couple of weeks now, but making certain that as much as you can, as we all know, it's not a matter of if anymore, it's a matter of when, but what you can do to protect yourself as the most components moving forward. So Serena's really been driving the data governance side of things, and they now have an operational governance board, data governance board, which is super exciting. And so she's going to talk a little bit about some of the work that she's done to put into place.
Yeah, sure. So Eric talked about how we kind of established kind of a data governance program, with this original grant. And some of that work, kind of didn't ever get, super formalized. And so we've kind of been doing data governance since then, maybe in a bit more ad hoc fashion. And so I think with this work, we really wanted to, kind of cement that structure, really have that framework in place. And so things that we've been working on an 18-month roadmap outlining kind of our 6 main goals of what we want to accomplish as part of data governance, and then outlining an action plan, which is just a really detailed list of what are all the tasks that we need to accomplish these 6 main goals and who's responsible for these. And then you can kind of see this in this graphic here is just kind of the structure that we've really been kind of setting up. Kind of a 3-tier structure. Of course, at the top, we need our leadership buy-in. We need our leadership to support this, understand what is data governance, why this is important, and why the agency should invest time and resources into this. Kind of the second tier, really kind of the heart of the data governance program, is our data governance board. So this is made up of essentially like 11 people across the agency who handle probably, our biggest data sets or involved in kind of the biggest reporting that we are required to do. And so this is a group that meets monthly and makes, is involved in all decision making around data governance, adopting policies, creating processes, these types of things. And then kind of our newest addition to the data governance kind of structure is these subcommittees. And these subcommittees really spend time addressing challenges we have, coming up with solutions, and making recommendations to the data governance board. And so we're kind of in the process now of getting these subcommittees up and started. We have 5 who really are dedicated to kind of some of the priorities of the data governance board. So you think, privacy and security is on here. We have 1 subcommittee focusing on our data request process and who has access to our data. And so that's kind of where our subcommittees are. We'll really be supporting the work of the board. Other things we've been working on is we really want to document everything. We've realized through this process, we rely too much on just what people know and remember, and we really want to document this process so that when we have staff turnover, it doesn't hurt, it's not as big of a hit. So that's been something that we really have been focusing on and still are working to make improvements on. But I just think overall, what we've been working on in the past kind of 6 months is really cementing the structure so that we have this structure in place, and so that we can kind of ensure long-term success of a data governance program.
Great. Thanks, Serena. So those are 2 of the 4 foci with governance and leadership. And now Eric's going to talk a little bit more in terms of privacy and security, and then he'll also jump into the 4th one of architecture.
Thanks, Joe. right now in our privacy security program, we're finalizing all these different things, and I'll just go through a few of them. Our maturity report, we went through and filled out a bunch of different security and privacy questions aligned with NIST questions, and did that evaluation. And we've received a maturity report from that, and it's a work in progress. So we're just going to go on further, but it was a nice view of where we sit right now, and it gives us a place a place to where we are right now, and steps we can make, identifies where we can improve in that area. We've done a risk and feasibility report. We're working on an investment report where we need to invest our dollars, and invest our resources and time and efforts and staff doing different actions and different things. District survey, we just put out a district survey to see how we can partner with our LEAs and our other education agencies out there that need help in the security and privacy area and aren't sure where to look. We've already taken steps in contacting our local chapter of our COSIN representative of OCEDL, or Oklahoma CEDL. I don't remember what that stands for. Sorry. Education Technology Leader. I remember that. I don't remember what the C stands for. But anyway, so the blueprint action, we have that has been given, not given. We worked through it together, but we with Jill and her team and Scott and his team, with Key Systems, and giving us a way to move forward and the next steps we need to take to increase our posture in privacy and security. We wanted to create a center of excellence, a place where people can come and learn and find what they need to do to set up their own privacy and security program. What's best practice, and how do we make strides in this area as a state to protect all of our students and teachers and education data. And then we've been working on a privacy and security catalog. So we're finalizing those. And what's next? We're going to craft some training and awareness for our training, for our privacy and security program. That's going to be for internal and external. We're going to create 2 different trainings there for that, and then we're going to advance the inventory and catalog. So we're going to continue building that out as we go. Next slide, please. Architecture. So what we have found is we were very siloed, even more siloed than I thought we were, but we are incredibly siloed. And we are not looking at our architecture as silos anymore. We're going to break that out and really integrate all of the different pieces of data collection that we do, because that's what we do, is data collection and reporting. That's our business. And so we don't want to have several different systems that kind of do their own thing. We want to have one system that, or at least one central place for all the data to flow, so that we know exactly what we have and we can ensure that is taken care of. So that's one of our objectives: have a comprehensive system and not several different siloed systems. And then we Jill and the design team came in and really helped us determine what our architecture should be, that will work for Oklahoma and our systems and our laws and our situation. So very, very excited that has been designed, at least generally speaking. And then our next steps are to select a vendor, about the RFP, and then select a vendor, and then we're going to build it. Hopefully we'll have this built a little bit at a time over the next 2 or 3 years, and we're going to do that in an agile fashion, so that we release a little bit at a time. So we can't wait to get started on that. To speak to,
and I think it's important too to mention, Eric, that you're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, right? So in the terms build, it's the redesign of the architecture where you may be utilizing some of the other components that are already complete.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're not just getting rid of everything and building everything new. We're going to use our current systems to integrate into our pipeline. Just the data flow is really where we're concentrating. The systems themselves, yes, we can redesign those applications, or potentially at some point do something else. But at the same time, we're not throwing, like she said, we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We're not rewriting every app and picking new vendors, and we're not doing all that. We're just taking it from where we are and increasing our efficiency in the data flow, ensuring that the systems themselves are aligned together and working together to complement each other instead of working against each other and doing the same things in duplicative manners in some places. So that's our goal here.
Yep, and there's also a migration path, right?
Yep.
So as things are deprecated, there will be that migration time. It's software development, right? You have to put in all of those aspects and components.
Absolutely. And then we're going to talk about interoperability here. So SIF, the SIF specification is legislatively mandated in Oklahoma. Every school has to use the SIF specification to transmit data to the OSDE. So that's one of the reasons we use SIF. It's incredibly efficient and effective at getting data to the state. Sometimes we have to work with our vendors to clarify, meanings of different things, but for the most part, the standard itself is a very good standard, and that's why we continue to stick with it. One of the core tenets of RFP is, so sorry, I just read that. I apologize. So interoperability is one of the core tenets of RFP. We do not look to be SIF and SIF only. We want to meet people where they're at. So we want to use whatever standard tools we can use to make our entire system interoperable, whether that's using newer API technology or using a standard to send it to use the PEST standard to send data to Parchment. We want to make sure that we're using interoperable standards across the board in the ways that they're meant to be used. Work with standards organizations to meet needs. So we've been working with SIF and others to meet those needs, to make sure that we use all those different types of standards for what we need to do, whatever we're doing. We want to be standards agnostic, I guess is the best way to say that. So improve our data. We want to improve our data quality by improving our validation and putting our validation processes, all of our validation processes, including business rules and consistency checks and all those different things earlier in the process, so that we don't have to wait until the end of the road to find out that the data was not as clean and we can't be as confident about our results. So we want to ensure that we improve our data quality by moving our validation processes as far left as we possibly can. And then we want to make sure we figure out a better way, figure out a different way or a better way to do year-to-year rollovers. Our student information systems across Oklahoma, every single one of them that I am aware of, they roll over yearly. So we have found a need and a desire to do the same thing. But that causes some data consistency issues over the summer when things get weird. So I just feel like that we need to find a better way to do the rollover. It just causes too many problems.
And what state does not complain about having to do student rollover, right? It's a perpetual challenge in terms of the work, and interoperability can help with that aspect.
Yep.
So let's turn it over to Serena and Eric and talk a little bit in terms of what's some advice through this process that you would give to others.
Serena, you want to go or you want me to go?
Sure, I can kick it off. Yeah. Yeah, this has been the first one of planning. This has been, a huge work of this, a huge portion of this work is a lot of our staff is so absorbed and spending so much time working on these kind of short-term fires. We have this data quality issue that needs to be fixed by tomorrow, or we have this report due next week. That we don't spend enough time on kind of long-term planning, road mapping, blueprinting, investment reports, all these things. And so this has been a great time over the past 6 months to really take some dedicated staff that is spending more time on long-term planning and really putting stuff in place that, eventually will, reduce the number of short-term fires we're having to deal with, and, really make the jobs here at OSD, better and improve our work experience.
And the next one, figure it out and document. So this is kind of where I'm coming with. You're going to come to a point, if you start doing work like this, you're not going to know the answer to a question. You're not going to know why you do things the way you do things. No one's going to know, or you're not going to know. Something's going to come up that you're just not going to know. So the best advice is I can view is figure it out, whatever it is. Work together with your team. If there's not an established rule, whatever the issue is, figure it out and then document it. And not just document the decision, but the reason behind the decision, so that whenever you go back to it, you understand the logic that you use to make the decision, or somebody else understands the logic, so that they don't break something going to try to fix something.
Yeah. And the next one, talking about nothing's going to be perfect the first time. And this honestly kind of goes to the last one of kind of progress over perfection, which I wrote. That's been kind of my motto lately of, we have so many great plans, but, we can't get them all done, even in the next, 18 months or whatever. And so my mantra has really been, as long as we're making progress, that's great. I'm happy with that. And, nothing's ever going to be perfect. You think specifically with privacy and security, you can never perfectly secure your systems or protect you from all risk. But as long as we are making progress, improving our processes, documenting, as Eric just said, that's all we can ask for. And so just making progress towards the end goals.
And the other two kind of fit together for me. So I'll cover those other two. So security and privacy are deep, but they don't have to start that way. And you don't know what you don't know, but you can learn. So I will say my weakness was, when we started, is probably still is the security and privacy areas, the separate areas of security and privacy. You just get exposed to just the weeds. It seems like you get in the weeds so quickly with security and privacy, and it's so hard to digest or just take it all in and understand it, digest it, and try to Scott and Jill and others that on our team have really helped me understand that you don't have to take that deep dive. You don't have to dive into the deep end first. You can slowly walk into this, take the stairs into the pool, and slowly ease your way into the water. So that's been my experience here. I didn't know a lot about security and privacy. I mean, I knew the basics, but not enough. And it's true. You can learn it. It just takes, getting in there, and you don't have to start deep. You just start at the base level.
So Eric, you don't have to jump off of the platform. You can take the stairs into the pool.
Yeah, take the stairs into the pool.
Perfect. Well, we want to turn over, there's about 10 minutes left, and see what questions, if there's any, and there is that Q&A in your bar down below that you can throw those questions into, so that we can answer anything if you want to dive deeper. This, we, in about 45 minutes, we covered a lot of things that has been a very intense amount of work for about 6 months. So while we're waiting for those questions to pop in there, Serena and Eric, I want to ask you, so overall, this work that we have done has been very collaborative, and not just internally within OSDE. So Eric just recently moved over to OMES, if you didn't catch that in the beginning. So what, how can you talk about how you created and focused on that internal collaboration? Because it isn't just, oh, my office of data is going to focus and make all of this happen.
I would start by saying that before we've ever engaged with Jill and her team, Maria, which is the deputy superintendent of about half a dozen things, but one of the, many of those can include data and data type, data type divisions or offices. She really got us all together. There was some inner tension between some of those offices prior to it, but she got us all together and really did a lot of team building, a lot of team oriented work with all of us. And we really grew together, I felt like, as a team, and really started looking out for the data, the students, the districts, instead of the office or this office or that office, or why are you doing my job, or why are you doing here? Why do you have access to that kind of stuff? That kind of went away, and we really started working together, and really that's where it really started. And then we engaged with you, and it just kind of took over from there. So I would say that's where it started.
Yeah, and just to kind of add on to that is I think kind of before this, a lot of our program staff was very much like, well, I don't do data. I'm not a data person. And so, teaching them like data doesn't have to be scary, and you don't have to know, they don't have to be running their own queries or coding or anything, but like have some general knowledge of what we're doing, what kind of data they're interacting with, and just getting them engaged with why this work is important and will ultimately help them with their work.
Great. And it looks like we did have a question pop up for us. And so it's, what advice would you have for other states who are looking to begin this work? And I think, we talked a little bit about what some advice would be. And maybe this is from an initial perspective of, oh gosh, we have a mess. What do we do?
First thing I would say is you got to make sure you're going to be dedicated to the work. You got to make sure you're going to have the time and the energy to do the work, because it's a lot of work. But I really don't, Serena, I don't remember exactly how, we just kind of we've been identifying it a little bit over time, over the several years, that this system is having this issue, and it's having this issue, and it's having this issue, and it's having this issue. And we finally just said, okay, enough of the issues. Let's figure out the root cause. And we started doing root cause analysis after root cause analysis after root cause analysis on everything that ever went bad in the system. And we realized that it's just because it's aging and we haven't invested. And so that's why we made the decision to start doing that.
Yeah, and something that I've kind of thought a lot about, and I think has been a good tactic for us, is jumping into a lot of this work. There's plenty of people that work at our agency that don't know what data architecture is or data governance are. They could care less. And so working on kind of early kind of quick wins that like are really visible and really help a lot of people at our agency. So like I'm thinking right now we're really working on improving kind of our data sharing agreement process. And that's something that's going to help a lot of people in our agency. Mm-hmm. And I think that gives a really good visual of like why this work is important.
Yeah, that's great. And yep. I think kind of or somewhat along those same lines, what has been one of the most difficult aspects of doing this work? Just one, Serena.
It's time and people, having the time and resources to do it, especially when you're still trying to deal with those kind of short-term fires. It's making sure you take the time to, these short-term fires are also important, but this long-term planning needs to be prioritized.
I would have to agree with you, Serena. I think Time has been the issue. But like you said, I totally see where you're coming from, because we've talked about it several times, that we can't get too engaged in the short-term fires and expect a good on this.
Mhm. Yeah. So I know one of the things that we have talked about quite a bit is reporting and reporting capabilities. And so what are some of the reporting capabilities that you're hoping with this new modernization you're going to be able to accomplish?
Well, there's a couple of different things that we're hoping that we'll have be able to accomplish. One is we would like to be able to give the internal staff, the OSDE staff, self-service data, ways to understand the data, understand what it means, but also be able to use a tool such as Tableau, Power BI, something like that, some analytics tool to self-report or to get data for themselves and make those decisions in real time. We'd also like to be able to do the same thing for our LEAs, obviously, for their daily use. I believe that's going to take a little longer because of training and different things, but that would be another one of our goals. And then finally, being able to provide the public with a transparent look at what's going on in Oklahoma schools, I think would be one of the ultimate goals in order to say that we succeeded here.
Yeah, and I'll just mention, this is something that I'm excited about is because a lot of our data collections tend to be siloed right now, and the goal is to hopefully be able to integrate them. Is this idea of being able to validate our data against other data that currently it's not. So like our teacher data separated from coursework data, if we can validate those against each other, that really helps us with a lot of data quality issues. So I'm excited about opportunities to be able to do that.
Great. So I know we're getting close to our time. I don't see any more questions in the Q&A. So with that, Jonathan, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Great. Well, I just want to thank everyone for being here, and thank all of our panelists for sharing their story and everything that they are doing in Oklahoma for data modernization. We have all the presenters' contact information on the slide, so please feel free to reach out with any questions that you might have, and we're there. I know they'll be happy to speak with you further. Our next webinar for Project Unicorn is Privacy and Interoperability, Risks and Rewards, and that is going to take place on September 27th at 1 p.m. I will drop a link to that in the chat. We are really excited about this one, and we hope that you can join us. Let me put that in the chat for you all. And once again, thank you so much. This was a great virtual trip to Oklahoma. Thank our presenters. Thank all of you for attending. You will receive a link to the presentation and to this recording afterwards, so be on the lookout for that. And thank you all once again, and we'll see you at the next one. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.